The change and the pace of change in cyberspace is absolutely amazing. Probably never before in recorded human history have we seen such accelerated change. What was last year probably is not the same as today. It is quite amazing to see how activities take a completely new shape within a year. So therefore, there is this very urgent need of keeping all of us updated on what is happening in the cyberspace. This summit has now mid-year period to take stock of what has been changing in the cyberspace, of how the changes are affecting crimes, how they are affecting security, how they are affecting public order, and how the law enforcement, lawyers, and the growing cyber criminal situation. I'm glad that these changes are being reflected in this year's agenda. When we are talking of online gaming, of gambling, of online sexual exploitation, child abuse, these are all serious threats to fabric and order in the society. Added to this is the increasing menace of billions of bits of fake information in social media and cyberspace, which has ominous portents for social harmony and also actually makes a very serious impediment and obstacle for social and economic development. While the police in India continues to struggle to deal with what I would term as the first generation cybercrime. Newer versions of serious crimes emerge and they are actually threatening to expand disproportionately. The prosecution of cybercrimes has huge limitations given the natural boundaries of states, of the questions of admissibility of evidence, of inability to investigate abroad. All these ensure that prosecution of cases remains bogged down. Investigators face similar hurdles, while criminal, as we are very much aware, has a borderless cyberspace and continues to commit more offenses with very low risk and with complete impunity. The international community, we are aware, has not really been able to reach a consensus on procedures, sharing of data, and evidence amidst diverse legal and political systems. There is still no universally accepted set of processes or convention which can direct or bind legal actions. The Budapest Convention, accepted by the European Union and many other states, including North America, continues to remain limited to these states, and huge parts of the world, including Russia and India, are not a part of this convention. Actually makes the task of the criminals far more easier. Therefore, a need that we are able to increase this cooperation. In some areas, there are signs of increasing cooperation, particularly in the matter of online child sexual abuse. There are also a few isolated examples of what are termed as parallel actions, where law enforcement of different countries operate simultaneously, irrespective of the legal and international jurisdiction. Like last year, the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the CBI had run a parallel action in US as well as various parts of India in cases where fraudulent call centers were targeting elderly US citizens. This was a huge success, but these are far and few in between and remain isolated. Needs a fillip for law enforcement to get united. A major challenge, therefore, is to urge, cajole, and push the policymakers to ensure that there are binding international conventions on cyber crimes, particularly a set of cyber crimes like the online child sexual abuse or similar other matters. In fact, the major challenge is that in pan-India situation, in national level cooperation also remains a big ask. And there is a space which has to be filled in professionally in between various police forces, which can optimize professional law enforcement effort. Coming to the current state, I suppose the major challenge to human society is coming from an absolute remarkable change, whether good or bad, I cannot say, in human behavior and in the human psyche. As I have observed that never before in human history has in such small and short a period, such changes have occurred. For hundreds of years, people were struggling to take information across to the remote areas in various parts of the world. In the last 10 years, this has actually exploded. In India, with the advent of faster data and smartphones, almost every village of India is now connected. In every nook and corner, the remotest places where the messages could not go now are actually an integrated part of the entire online community. This, while is very productive and very useful, has very serious and negative consequences on a large section of people, particularly the ones who are growing up. I mean, you go to any college hostel across any city in India and you will find that almost whole night the students are up and they are either gaming online or they are online. Lot of undesirable activity, which is consequently they get up mid-noon and the entire day is lost. Earlier, 10 years back, there were campuses which used to take pride in saying that we are providing bandwidth and so on and so forth. Join such campuses. Now you don't need any of that. You have your own phone, and that itself is sufficient. But that actually is making a huge challenge, and I think this is one area in which all stakeholders, particularly the law enforcement, pay much more greater attention and go in for actually empirical research, find out what exactly is happening and what is the way to negotiate. We cannot stop the change. The change is going to happen. Can we give it a direction? Because this is right where the tendency towards social deviance begins. The online situation in the last 25 years, we have seen that from acceptable social norms has become of such humongous nature that probably everything is going to be changing. There are going to be no traditions. Not that we do need to understand what's happening, so as we are able to address. As I've just said, that the online gaming has probably disrupted thousands of young minds. The gambling has assumed proportions which are unbelievable. The IPL, which has just started a couple of days back, 100 forms which permit people to bet on legally, illegally from here right up to Dubai. Police, Rajasthan and Maharashtra had busted 2 such modules. But a very quick investigation revealed that there are hundreds of such which are part of a single app or a API which has come from UK. There would be several others of this nature. Now, each of this is clearing bets to an amount of 6 to 8 crores a day. It's a huge amount, a huge thing. Also raising questions about the validity of the actual matches, whether they are being fixed. There's always unsavory sort of a reputation attached to present day sport, but not casting aspersions on any game. A very small one-line story, which is actually technically true. A better asks one of his, people, जिसे फट्टा लगाना है कि आज किस टीम पे फट्टा लगाया जाए, ना आज मत लगाना, आज टाई होना, and the match actually 24 hours later gets tied. Whether this is a coincidence or whether there's something which is illegal, we do not know. The fact remains that these things are now becoming so much more easier. While it is easier for the criminal to operate, it's also easy for the investigator to reach to these sites. But there ends the trail. We found that all payment systems, including UPIs, including wallets, payment gateways, are actually being used to transfer money, and bank accounts are also part of the system. So this is the ingenuity of the online crimes which are now continuing passing day. The most current fintech processes are a part of these crimes. We are aware of the data sharing and privacy issues. They remain vexed. The need for national servers, the need to regulate global tech giants, all are complex matters with effective solutions for it. Add to this is the exponential growth of hacking software, of which we keep hearing, and capacities for law enforcement is only increasing. While, as our Manohar ji said, the AI and machine learning tools are used every single website and app to hijack or claim, use it, to sell it, to do anything with which they like with it. And there is absolutely very little regulation or an impact which we can sort of protect the data which you have. I mean, we are all aware that a app like a caller actually takes away all your data and puts out at most of it in public domain, and so on and so forth. Truecaller to be used for various sorts of phishing frauds. It's almost a daily thing which is happening. So while the AI and machine learning tools are important for investigation, the ease with which the criminals are getting them is absolutely astounding. We are aware that the dark web is an unregulated criminal space, and it is continuing to flourish and grow. A recent Europol paper calls crime as a service business model. Crime is a service business model which grants easy and searchable option access to criminals for products and services, thereby enabling a broad base of criminals to launch attacks of a scale and scope disproportionate to their technical capacity and asymmetric in terms of risks, cost, and profiles. They're also now is an evolving model called ransomware as a service business model. These are serious questions. We are aware that the financial disruptive models are the flavor of the present day banking, and it has to come. Banking, the most conservative of all businesses, is now continuing to change with each year. When we first talked of a PayPal or a Paytm, now there are maybe a dozen of them, each of them working independently. The retail banking sector has been financially disruptive, and this is a positive thing. It is taking finances, banking down to the last man, but it has its negative or a flip side also. That is something also which again is a serious challenge we are going to face. We are aware of the first generation cyber crimes of phishing phone or an email, which takes your details, which takes 500 rupees from you, and it goes on accumulating as to crores of rupees. I think in Madhya Pradesh itself, about 3 to 4 years back, we had a particular interesting criminal module in which there were callers sitting across in Pakistan, making calls to Indian numbers, being disguised as the calls coming from Indian phone calls, going through certain Chinese-made boxes, which are converting the Pakistan numbers to Indian numbers. And then they are ringing up thousands of people, collecting small amounts every day. These amounts are being deposited in Jan Dhan Yojanas, with the passbooks are being kept by, the ATMs are being kept by criminals. And this, then money is going through as payments for Tata Sky illegal activities happening there, and all happening in a very smooth manner with actually no, and this sort of thing has been replicated across in very many states and the entire country. So this is the challenge. We then come to the major challenge, which we talk of the blockchain technology, the cryptocurrency. Friends, cryptocurrency is completely unregulated in India, and it is a very that almost every retail investor who is investing in financial market is in some way or the other investing in this blockchain or Bitcoin or its cousins. Now, all of these are being run through exchanges which are unregulated, unmonitored. The RBI has no regulation over any of them. The day people lose, large number of people lose a lot of money, there is nothing which anybody can do about it. So this is a question which is of a great significance. And, you know, we have always had in India a very ingenious, sort of innovative class of criminals. We are aware that even the share trades being run through parallel markets, what used to be called the Dabba. The Dabba markets used to be a very regular feature across middle India. Now, I am 100% sure that similar parallel markets are now emerging using blockchain technology in India. We know that in the parallel economy of India, where cash used to work earlier, and cash is no longer easily available, a lot of this flow is now going through cryptocurrency. This is again an area in which, and I'm aware that in the recent past there have been some very good successes in MP police regarding these cryptocurrency investigations. So, if these challenges, which were of the future and now and present, is not enough, The police is bogged down in the daily routine of first generation cyber crimes. Phishing mails, phone calls, the notorious Jamtara model have now been very successfully outsourced, and places like Tikamgarh and Kota and you name it, every district has got some specialized set of villages which are now developing probably they are having some sort of a similar knowledge sharing which we are having now. That is happening. Millions of people are at threat. Millions are being sort of, duped every day. The data which we speak of, the registered cyber crimes, is probably not even 1% of the overall figure. The Madhya Pradesh Dial 100 system probably is a hugely successful data model which can probably give us some information as to how many people are really coming and reporting about cyber incidents. But this is not enough. Today, in every single crime which have been committed, the investigation of that has some cyberspace or cyber forensics evidence. So therefore, the need and value of cyber forensics has grown exponentially. The major issue which needs to be addressed also is the legal situation. I was just talking to a Cleartrail partner that legally speaking, if I seize a device, a laptop or a mobile phone, I have to clone it in front of the witnesses and seal it. I cannot examine the original device myself, even if it supports my investigation. It has to go to a accredited forensic science laboratory for results. And the waiting time right now in different states varies, but it's from 6 months to 2 years for a device to be forensically examined and the result coming back to the investigator. This is not acceptable, but this is what is the current legal situation. So on one hand, there is this problem. On the other hand, lawyers across the country say that the police and other law enforcement agencies are with complete impunity disregarding all the procedures for a proper search and seizure, and they are getting the evidence without following the due process. There is a clamor that evidence system in which we have, we do not agree to the evidentiary argument for collection of evidence. In the US, doctrine is that the fruit of a poisonous tree is also poisonous. So if the evidence has been illegally, it is illegal and cannot be adduced. We follow the British law. In the British law, in 1861, there is a judgment where they said that no, even if the police told the Supreme Court in 1973 has agreed to this particular hypothesis in Malkani versus State of Maharashtra. But as I said, in both the cases, whether you are doing it improperly or you are doing it properly, the investigation process is very cumbersome, difficult. The evidence admissibility also needs to be looked into. We certainly have a case that the legal community, the lawyers, and the law enforcement officers sit down and draw out the need for a proper legislative mechanism in this regard. Friends, these are the difficult contexts, all of them very, very complex, in which this conference is being organized. So it goes to the credit of our DGP, Shri Vivek Johari, the training directorate, Srimati Arna Mohan Rao, Anuradha Shankar ji, and her entire team, that this excellent initiative, which began 3 years ago, to flourish and grow. This is an opportunity which we should take to draw a cyber blue line. Blue line as seen. Blue line is the police line. Cyber blue line is where the police capabilities are defined. So we have to start using this summit to draw a cyber police line. The technologically driven disruptions in all human endeavors will throw up and are throwing up socially, ethically, and legal issues. The question is, how do we find out ways and means to balance them? I have taken a lot of time, but allow me to list out the steps which can enhance the efficacy of the outcome of this summit. One, the awareness for prevention of crimes. This is something which it cannot be just emphasized on. The capacity building of stakeholders, hand-holding and creating replicable processes, expanding the horizons of knowledge, which is one of the key parts of this summit. Most importantly, generating policy prescriptions, legal, procedural, preventive, and investigative. I would strongly urge the government of MP and the DGP to invest in research. Research in law enforcement is one area in which we can certainly contribute a lot. I wish this summit a great success. In my opinion, the key is to find the right balance. It is only appropriate that this summit is being inaugurated today on 21st September as we approach the fall or the autumn equinox on September 22 of this year. We know that nature does not allow balance to come easily. Only 2 days out of 365 are balanced days. But I hope that with the direction of Sri Johari, we will probably reach 2.5 days out of 365. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Dhanyavad.